You know, I'm something of a podcast myself. I'm something of a podcast myself. You know, I'm something of a podcast. I'm something of a podcast. I'm something of a podcast myself.
All right. Hello. Welcome. To yet another episode of Something of a Podcast. The only podcast brave enough to say, I'm something of a podcast myself. I am something of a co-host. I am Mike Gams, and with me as always is the very talented Kai Von Doom. Say hello, Kai.
Hello, Kai. Also, I have to point out that I have this towel on my head if you're watching the video because I just bleached my hair and I need to fix it. And if you are a black girl, doing your hair takes all day. So, fuck it.
Yeah, trendsetter. That's what I thought. I thought it was like the new thing. If you hadn't have said something next week, I was gonna start like rocking that in public just because you know how white queer men love to copy black women.
Yep.
So I figured I would do that right there.
I should do that to start just like implanting some fake trends. Just go to Roar, just wearing something ridiculous and see how many people steal it.
That's funny. You know, it's like in like crime movies or mob movies when they plant false information so that to like weed out the rat or whatever to see where there's a leak in the boat, so to speak. Yeah, but instead of doing that, you're just fucking with white people, which is even better. Nice. Yeah. So we are here. This is something of our 9th episode, I want to say. And I guess what we could talk about first is that I've noticed recently that both you and me have our anniversary this month. Isn't that right?
Yes. Yes, our comedy anniversary is how many years are you?
Me? Well, so technically my comedyversary is April. The first time I ever did stand up, first time I started going to any open mics was in April 2009. So that would be 15 years this month. Oh, thank you.
I was in high school. I was a junior in high school in 2009.
2009. You hadn't graduated yet.
Yeah, I
Well,
graduated 2010.
if it makes you feel any better, I was still a college student at the time. I was in film school in Los Angeles. And if it makes you feel any better, that was when I started. First time I did stand up, and that was kind of short lived. I didn't go back to doing like stand up or performing live, really, other than for that first like month or two until December 2013. So still over 10 years, but that first 5 years I wasn't so much as doing like stand up. But April is also your comedyversary, right? When did you start doing
Yes.
that? So how many years?
So I started mid-April 6 years ago. So this is my sixth comedyversary.
2018.
And I don't know, I feel like, yeah, it doesn't feel much like 6 years because we had the pandemic kind of in the middle of that. So it feels like, I got to subtract 2 years from that or whatever, because no one was really going to mics or doing anything. But I kind of had a similar thing. I went to maybe one or two open mics, and then I was just like, okay, that was fun, and didn't do it for a few months. And then I just, for some reason, started going back, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I did like a couple open mics. I saw a picture on my Facebook memories today that was at USC at like a coffee shop. So I completely forgot that I did a mic there or went to like the USC campus. But in my memory, I had started. Well, I know that I started at the Ha Ha Cafe in North Hollywood, which is like uh it's infamous because it's not in Hollywood and it's like it's a club where a lot of people start out and do open mics, and you could get up. It's not necessarily like it's not the Comedy Store, you know. It's not like on that level. It's like, um, but I did a couple mics, and then I remember I got asked to do my first like booked like showcase on a Sundays, basically just like a booked mic essentially, but called a showcase, and I bombed, and then was afraid to go back on stage. I didn't go back. That's that, and that's when I yeah. And I only started doing stand up again because I played a stand up in a comedy sketch that like went sort of viral or whatever, and then I just started doing stand up again in 2013 and just sort of rolled with it. The first time I had performed live again, like I was thinking about it before we started, would have been on the Rachel Barnhart show. That was my first live appearance in December 2013. And since then, I've been consistently doing it for the most part. You know, there's pandemic and other, you know, distractions. So 6 years, Comedyversary. I saw you post on Facebook that it would be the first year that you weren't celebrating your Comedyversary. Well, liar, because here we are celebrating your Comedyversary. Do you usually do something special?
Yeah, sometimes I put on a show with just like my friends, and then sometimes I just like go out to a bar and drink, which is like what I would do anyways.
Mm,
So it's not much of a celebration. I don't know, maybe tonight I'll get dressed up and just like go have a drink somewhere.
nice. Hell yeah. Um, there was something I was gonna say about that. Oh, I was, you know, speaking of, you know, Comedyversaries and performing comedy. I like to check in with you about the haps of the Kai Von Doom comedy career. We talked previously about, you know, your hosting gigs and stuff, and you had a pretty cool gig this weekend, right?
Yes, I did my first Don't Tell show.
Don't
I
Tell
did Don't
comedy, right?
Tell. Yeah. Yes, I did that out in Ithaca. It was interesting. It was a really young crowd, of course, because Ithaca's a college town, so it's a bunch of college students there. And that was the first time I've ever felt old at a show.
Oh yeah, because
Because
Ithaca, that's where Cornell and Ithaca College
yeah,
are both right there.
Ithaca College. Yep.
Yeah, and so you got the Cornell and the Ithaca. They're like, yeah, it's a certain type of college kid too. Like when you're like Cornell being the one of the colleges that are right there too. Um, oh, and I guess I'll
Fun
just say,
fact is,
oh, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say a fun fact, I actually got into Cornell, but my
Yeah,
mom did not want me to go to school like outside of Rochester. So I ended up going to U of R instead.
I see.
I was like, oh, I was almost one of you guys.
I'll have to start calling you Andy Bernard. Uh, that's like the Office guy, right? What's his what the hell is the actor's name? The
Ed Helms,
Ed Helms,
I
correct.
think.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. He's all about the Cornell on that show. But yeah, but just I was gonna say for those that don't know that are listening, Don't Tell Comedy is this sort of comedy brand that started in 2017 in Los Angeles, and the whole concept is they're called, you know, Don't Tell. They're supposedly like secret comedy shows that take place in alternative venues, like outside of the comedy club system, where they generally have secret lineups and secret locations that are usually announced on the day of the show, and they could be all different kinds of places, just not your typical comedy venues, often places that aren't even show venues. It could be like an art gallery, or just like they really kind of pride themselves on being in sort of random and kind of obscure small businesses and places and stuff like that. And they started in Los Angeles and have since expanded all around the country and very rapidly in the last couple of years, so that they do these secret shows all over the country with this branding of Don't Tell Comedy. And um, yeah, so they have them all. I think I heard a really great interview recently with the founder of Don't Tell Comedy. This comedian, his name is Kyle. Hold on, I have his last name right here. Kyle Kazanjian. He's from Los Angeles, and um, it was on. I heard this really great interview with on the Comedy Bureau podcast, which is definitely worth checking out if you're really into like comedy nerd stuff. But Don't Tell comedy have kind of popped up in all these different cities around the country. It's like some of the best, the bigger shows in. It's quickly become like the it shows in comedy all over the country and cities all over. And they've just started a few in Western New York. There's they're working on, I think, Don't Tell Buffalo. There's Don't Tell Rochester, and you did Don't Tell Ithaca, which is in, like we said, Ithaca near Cornell and Ithaca University or college. So that's pretty cool. I've yet to do a Don't Tell comedy, actually. I'm still waiting to get my Don't Tell cherry pops. Maybe it'll be on Ithaca, who knows, or it could be somewhere else. But so that's cool. You got your first Don't Tell. What was the venue like?
So it was actually in an art gallery. So it's funny
See,
that that's the
yeah, art
example that you
gallery.
mentioned.
That's
So it was
cool.
really cool. Yeah, it was in a cool part of the town, like I said, college town area, lots of bars and like different places around. So it was a good spot.
Nice. And they're like known for the fact that always, no matter, like they have a following all around the country, so they fill their shows at these places without the comics having to do the legwork to fill the show because
Yeah.
it's a secret lineup. It's not, the onus isn't on the performer to also be the promoter and the booker, or like the, promoter, marketing and all that stuff. You get to come perform and get like treated like that's, like how you should be treated,
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was refreshing for sure. I
Yeah.
know a lot of comics I've seen do not listen to that advice. They definitely over promote it. And it's like I feel like that's taken away from the spirit of it.
Yeah, yeah, and I get that people are gonna say that they're doing a don't tell show because like it's, you don't want to keep it completely secret. It's like it's good for your career. You want to talk about that you're doing it, and if you have friends that want to come out. But I think the don't tell part is like on the show doesn't tell who the lineup is, and you don't
Mhm.
tell where the location is. But there's like a line you could like announce that you're doing don't tell, but it's not your job to do the promotion for it,
Yeah.
which is, yeah, like you said, a relief. Because often, as performers, we're bookers, promoters, the ushers, setting up chair, doing all the things.
Mhm.
Yeah, and yeah. Oh, and I don't know if you, while we were talking about Comedyversaries and performing and stuff, I don't know if you wanted to mention that you about the new Boulder thing.
Oh yeah, I am now the host of the Boulder Comedy Open Mic. So if you're in Rochester, New York, and free on a Monday night, come through, come tell some jokes.
And dare I say that the Boulder Open Mic is the longest running open mic in Rochester. I'm pretty sure because it's been going on
I
for.
think that might be Firehouse,
Oh, is
but
it
I'm
Firehouse?
not sure.
Okay.
I think so.
But Boulder's been going on for quite a long time. It's had
Mhm.
it's changed hands like a few times as people have moved, or and I'm really excited for the new Kai Von Doom era of the Boulder mic. And I went this week and we had a good time. I came in a little late, but it was fun and good to see you hosting and doing your thing. You were in half of On Doom cosplay. I recognized as soon as I walked in, I knew. So that's why I'm glad you made that. You mentioned like that you had started putting on your Doctor Doom cosplay, but didn't quite finish the whole thing. And when I walked in, I was like, it looks like she's wearing her Doctor Doom dress.
Yeah, I had to, but I realized not a lot of people would appreciate the costume because most of them think my real last name is Von Doom. So if I
Yeah.
showed up in a mask and everything, they would have just been confused.
We've heard of Don't Tell Comedy. Well, don't tell Kai's last name. That's the other thing. Yeah, yeah, so that's cool. I'm excited to see how that goes, and I'm happy for you. That's good. That's two good things to report. 6 years in, and we got two good accomplishments right there this week. So you are celebrating. We are celebrating your comedy anniversary. Look at that. First, don't tell, and then you got a weekly mic hosting gig, so that's cool.
Thank you, and happy 15 years to you. That's
Oh,
awesome.
thank
That's such a
you.
long time. I
I
don't know if I
know.
could see my I'm
I
ready
know.
to throw in the towel every day.
Yeah, well, if you need one, you got one right here.
Just take
That
it.
is a joke. I mean,
Okay.
don't throw in the towel, but the towel is right there. Yeah, I like to say I started at the bottom and I'm still here.
Okay, Drake.
No, still here. Not, I know I'm here. I started at the bottom and I'm still here at the bottom. Not now I'm here. Yeah, that's that's the Drake. Um, yeah, I'm not gonna get into Drake, but yeah, so that's Comedyversaries and Don't Tell and all that. Um, yeah, so that's all good, positive stuff. I'm happy to check in about comedy careers. Um, so we should probably keep rolling. I got a couple other things wanted to talk about. So speaking of comedy, not a great transition. But did you happen to catch any of this week's Saturday Night Live with Ryan
I
Gosling?
did. I have Ryan Gosling as my background
Oh,
in
I see
honor.
that. I see. Now I see it. Nice, nice. So you saw some of it?
Yeah, I saw most of it.
Yeah, what'd you think?
I honestly love Ryan Gosling. I think he's hilarious. I cannot wait to watch The Fall Guy. Um, yeah, I thought he was hilarious. I always loved like the Close Encounters
Yeah,
sketches. So
so
I'm
good.
glad
So
they
that
did
was the cold open was the classic Kate McKinnon
that.
Close Encounters sketch, which is it's the same thing every time, but it's so funny every time. It gets me every
Yeah.
Kate McKinnon is one of the funniest people ever. She's one of the most talented SNL cast members ever, I think. Just incredibly talented. And Ryan Gosling did a pretty good job. He's funny, he's charming, he laughs at
Yeah.
every single sketch he breaks. Um,
I love when they break in the sketches. It's my
yeah,
favorite thing.
yeah. I hated when Jimmy Fallon did it because I don't like
But
him.
yeah, he's supposed to
But
know better.
yeah, but I like when Ryan Gosling does. And then other things worth mentioning, I thought like was the Beavis and Butthead sketch, which is just
Oh my
that's just
God,
a
that was
sight
so funny.
gag. It is so funny. Yeah, it's worth checking out. Just the image of it alone is like, yeah, it's good. That's what everyone was laughing at that. Um, one thing I did want to, well, two things I wanted to talk about specifically from this episode, but one, real quick is, did you happen to see the "Get That Boy Back" um, country song music sketch?
No, I actually missed that one.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Um, okay, I'll keep it brief though, but basically they did a parody of a country song, um, where there's like three girls singing. It's the two Chloes and then Ego. Um, how do you say her last name? I can't remember. Ego, you know who I'm talking about, Ego from the
Yeah.
cast member. Yeah, yeah. So the
Yep.
three of them, and just the whole bit is that the third one, whatever the verses are saying, are way unhinged. Like they're taking it too far, like the rule of three kind of thing. They're singing about getting a boy back. But what I think is interesting, I just wanted to point out, is that so we have Ego in this sketch, which is three women doing like the girl group country thing. And I think that like we talked about the Beyonce album for a couple weeks ago, and I think that there's a somewhat of a ripple effect here of influence where I think last year or in years past, if SNL was doing a sketch that is a country music video with three women singing country, all three of them are white. There's not a black woman in that sketch.
Mm.
Typically, you know, and I think that like we talked about before with Beyonce sort of normalizing that hey, like black people belong in country music too, sort of thing. And just as we've gone over, and so I'm seeing that playing out. Just thought it was worth pointing out the Beyonce effect of that. But yeah, and then the other thing that I wanted to mention is, did you happen to see the weekend update that Caitlin Clark came on to Weekend Update.
Yes, I did. It was satisfying to see her put Michael Che in his place for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So for those that I didn't see it, Caitlin Clark, the women's basketball college player, just got drafted in the WNBA, star player, um, came on and basically they played a montage of Michael Che's sexist jokes he's made, like making fun of women's sports, which is something he uses as a punchline a lot, and like basically played it to his face, and then made him make a bunch of jokes that Caitlin Clark, quote unquote, wrote for him to make, just from the opposite perspective, like making fun of himself and just kind of calling out the fact that he's been making fun of women's sports. So they get this like top women's athlete or this yeah, a superstar right now on there. And so I thought that was pretty cool. And so Caitlin Clark was there on Saturday Night Live because she was in New York City because they had the WNBA draft on Monday night, where since all of these new star college players, that there's now all this sudden, for the first time ever, interest, like huge amount of interest in women's basketball. So this was the first WNBA draft that had people there watching and fans, and it was like there's a lot of interest in it. Did you happen to see any of the results from the draft?
No, not really. I didn't really follow it.
Yeah, I'll just give a quick a rundown, because there's one point that I wanted to bring up with this specifically. But so Caitlin Clark
Mm.
went first. She went to the Indiana Fever, which everyone knew and we talked about last week, right? The Los Angeles Sparks had the second and fourth pick, and they picked Cameron Brink from Stanford, which is that tall blonde woman who's like she did really well in the tournament, like tall center, and Rakia Jackson from Tennessee, which I was hoping that was where Angel Reese was going. I had said that last week, that I'd really hoped that she would go to Los Angeles because I thought that would be cool. But to what ended up happening is that the Chicago Sky had the third pick and the seventh pick. And with the third pick, they picked Camila Cardosa, the star from South Carolina who just won the national championship, the center, huge dominant player. And with the seventh pick, they picked Angel Reese. So Camila Cardosa and Angel Reese, who've been playing against each other since high school. They've played, like, been rivals all the way through, played in a national tournament against each other several times, are both going to Chicago, the city of Michael Jordan, to play together on the Chicago Sky. So I thought that was pretty cool. It wasn't what I was hoping for the narrative's sake, the Los Angeles, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, and I know I don't want to get like too much into sports or basketball. That's not what this like podcast is. But I wanted to just talk about that as a follow up, because we had talked about it before. But there's one other person I have to mention who was drafted in Monday night's WNBA draft. And are you familiar with a player named how do you say? I gotta figure it. Daisha Fair. Do you know who that is? Daisha Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. So I hadn't followed women's basketball a ton, but Daisha Fair was taken with the 16th pick and was is going to the Las Vegas Aces. So what I just learned about Fair is really cool. Is, so you probably already know all of this, is that she's from Rochester. She went to Edison Tech. She was all Greater Rochester, like one of the best player in Rochester. And then she went to the University of Buffalo and helped bring the University of Buffalo back to the national championship tournament, the NCAA tournament. And she was there did 2 years there in Buffalo. And her coach at the time was Felicia Leggett Jack, who was a star at Syracuse back in the day. Well, her coach at Buffalo then took the job at Syracuse, her alma mater. And Daisha Fair went with her to Syracuse and then helped bring Syracuse to its first national championship, or not national championship, national tournament in years. So just to point out these, I brought all that up to point out like 3 stats that I think are cool as hell about Daisha Fair. All Greater a Greater Rochester Player of the Year in high school, helped bring Buffalo to the tournament, and helped bring Syracuse to the tournament, like the pride of Western New York here, helping Rochester, Buffalo, Syracuse, putting them all on the map. And she is 5'5". She's one of the shortest players in the WNBA. She's one of the shortest players in college. And they've really doubted her. She's basically kind of like an underdog because they say she might be not big enough to play in the WNBA, and because she's a small player. So she represents for us short kings out there. So she's like Western New York pride, short king pride. I'm all about it. And just real quick, and then I'll finish on this, is that so the on the short king thing, another positive is that she was drafted by the Las Vegas Aces, and it turns out their head coach is also like a 5'5" player who played in the WNBA for like 15 years and is one of the most successful undersized players in WNBA history, and that's who drafted our local hero. So I have a lot of high hopes for that, and so I may be becoming a Las Vegas Aces fan simply out of hometown pride. However, one thing I have to mention is, do you know who owns the Las Vegas Aces?
No.
Mark Davis, that's his name, right? The owner of the Raiders, and Tom Brady. So,
Oh.
yeah, I know. But they did just win the last 2 back-to-back WNBA titles. So they're also the front runner team, and they're owned by Tom Brady. But my allegiance is to our hometown hero, Daisha Fair, short king, short queen from Edison Tech High School, University of Buffalo, and Syracuse University. Okay, that's all I wanted to ramble about basketball, which was already too much. But do you have anything else to say about any of that? Okay.
No, I think we can move on.
Yeah. Sorry. We'll keep going. I just was really stoked to learn about all that. So
Yeah, congrats to her. I haven't
yeah,
heard a lot of people talking about it. I just saw one Facebook post, and that's how I
right.
learned all that. Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't seen. I found it by accident. I happened to see Syracuse, and then I'm just like Wikipedia holding, and I'm like, how is this not being talked about in our local media? You know, I mean, we know all the reasons why: sexism, racism. You
Yeah.
know, why? Of course, they're not going to. Rochester media isn't gonna. I digress. You know, we know.
Yeah.
But so next on our agenda is did you happen to see the Jerrod Carmichael Reality Show yet?
Yes, I am all caught up. I watched all the episodes.
3 episodes, the first 3
Yes.
episodes. Thoughts?
Um, I don't know. I don't really have much. Like, I love Gerard. I think he's funny. I don't know if I like the show or not. I don't know what he's trying to say. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. Yes.
I can't look away though.
Like,
It's wild.
yeah.
I
Like the
think
first episode with the first episode with Tyler, I feel like he's trying to make not necessarily make Tyler the villain, but it's like, oh, look at how he broke my heart. And it's like, I love Tyler, the creator, so I might be a little bit biased. But because, like, as I mentioned when we talk about Sid and our like female vocalist, I grew up on Odd Future. I love his music. But I don't think it's fair to like put this on your friend. And I've had this happen to me a lot for someone to just say, like, we just have this awesome friendship, and then all of a sudden they're like, I'm in love with you. And
Mm-hmm.
then you're just automatically the villain if you don't say, yes, I'm in
Yeah.
love with you too. Because the way our society is set up, we put so much more value on romantic relationships than friendships. And so if you're like, oh, you already have this great friendship and he's in love with you, you're supposed to say yes. So I feel like they painted Tyler out to be like this callous person. And then in the next episodes, we're seeing him like sucking on white boys' toes and like all this. I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to be gaining from this show.
Yeah.
I love Jerrod though, so I'm still gonna keep watching.
So I think I've been thinking about this show a lot. So after I saw like the first episode, I was just like, I want somebody to want me the way Jerrod Carmichael wants Tyler the Creator, you know? Uh,
You
and I
don't.
and I kind of want that someone to be Jerrod Carmichael. That's what I said when I saw the first episode. Then the second episode comes out, and I'm like, okay, he has a white boyfriend named Mike. We're getting closer here. Um, but after watching the second episode and then now watching the third episode, but even just from the second episode, I 100% could confirm in my head that Jerrod Carmichael is both the hero and villain of this show. He is
Yeah,
100%
he's
the
gonna cheat
villain.
on you. So
He is
if you
he
would
is not I man, I so I like him less after watching the show as a person, but maybe
yeah,
more as a creative because
yeah,
I'm uh it's yeah, it is he understand like reality TV. Part of the point is like I think I talked about this before is that they show warts of people and it's kind of like you show but he's showing his own warts, so it's almost in a way masturbatory, but at the same time it's like he's not painting himself out to be good at all. Like he is doing bad things. He's treating his friends bad. He's
yeah.
treating the people around him poorly and putting a camera in their face while he's doing it. But he's like aware that he's doing it and that he's a bad friend for doing it. But it raises like that question is if someone is self-aware that they're being a bad friend and a bad person, does it make it better that they're still doing
No,
it or worse because they're aware
I would say
and they're
worse. I would
continuing?
say worse.
Yeah.
Because now he's not only being a bad friend, but he's also profiting off of it and exposing it to the general public. So that's why
Yeah.
I'm just like, what is the point?
I feel
Why
but
do I
like
need to know that he's cheated on his boyfriend? Like I say all the time, I wish we knew less about each other.
yeah, it's really like sort of voyeuristic in this. Yeah, it's but I'm super fascinated by it and aesthetically still very much have a crush on Jerrod Carmichael. He's very hot. Like um and I used to have a crush on him when I knew him, but I didn't like I met him, but he was very much in the closet then, so I thought I had a crush on a straight guy. But then I'm
You should have went for it.
no, I dodged a bullet. I dodged like a machine gun full of
You could
bullets.
be getting cheated on TV too.
Oh my god. Oh, woof. The show's heavy, but I'm gonna keep watching it. I'm
Oh,
extremely fascinated by it. I watched it. He was on the last thing I'll say is he was on the Breakfast Club this week too because like they were dogging him and they're always wrong about half the shit that they say on that show anyways, but they were more mad about him criticizing Dave Chappelle than anything. But he was on there to
of
like
course.
defend some of the things he was saying.
Mhm.
But yeah, uh I digress. But yeah, if you haven't watched it, definitely check it out. And I don't know how many more episodes there are, but I'm gonna definitely keep watching it. Um, I know we only have like about 4 minutes before break here. Uh, but that's I went long on everything, and I apologize. But is there anything else that you've been watching you want to tell me about? Something new that I should maybe check out?
Yes, so I And like everything I've been talking about, at least mentioning Fall Guy and mentioning this show that I'm about to watch, is leading up to our top three for sure. It's beautiful how this worked out. But this show is a remake actually of a 90s Australian, like kind of like Degrassi, if you've ever seen that show.
I see.
So this show is called Heartbreak High, and it's
It's
like a
on where?
typical teen drama. It's on Netflix.
Heartbreak High on Netflix. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So it's like a typical teen drama where it's like all these kids and they're like messy relationships. So it starts off where these two friends, they're like writing a map of everyone in the school who's hooked up with who. They like drew it out
Oh.
on like this back stairwell that no one ever sees.
It's almost like the burn book in Mean Girls, but like 10
Yeah.
times because it's like a visual map. I like that. Like, I mean, not like it, but that's an interesting story
Yeah.
element there for sure.
Yeah, so they add to it throughout like the years as like people hook up and break up. They constantly updated the map and they think no one's ever going to see it because it's in this like closed off part of the school. So they start renovating the school or whatever happens where that area is like opened up now and all of the kids see it. So it's like they're not using nicknames or anything. These are people's names and everyone's trying to figure
Oh,
out who drew the hookup map. And it turns out it's like the main character, A. Marie. So then everyone starts hating her. She goes from being like one of the most popular girls in the school to being just like a social outcast. So the show is just like on the light part, on the surface part, that's like what the show is about. But it's also Amory and her best friend Harper have a falling out, and everyone thinks it's because of the hookup map, but it's because Amory and Harper attend this party and where Harper is almost sexually assaulted, but Amory didn't like stay with her. She like went to go hook up with somebody else. So Harper kind of blames her for what happened to her. So it's like it gets really heavy on that
I
end,
see.
but it's done in like a delicate way.
I'll
So
definitely
yeah,
have
I
to check
can't,
that out.
yeah,
I
can't
saw there
recommend
wasn't
it
too
enough.
many episodes either. It's like short seasons, right?
Yeah, short seasons. I think they're like 10 episodes each. There's two seasons. And it, like I said, it's like Degrassi and the way they deal with all these teen dramas. Like there's the teen pregnancy, there's like the kid who's gay, and like it's
Mm.
like, oh, I don't know, I'm dealing with my feelings. But
And it's a
it's
remake
done in
of an
like a
Australian
more,
show.
yeah.
So is it
So I've never seen the original,
in
but
American English then?
no, it's this was also Australian. But
Okay. It's an
yeah,
Australian remake of an Australian show.
yeah.
That's cool. And you're right. That does lead perfectly into our second half segment here,
Mhm.
which we're going to be talking about our top three remake movies. And we may
Yes.
be cut off here at any moment. And when we're cut off,
Okay, welcome back from the break. I'm sure you guys weren't on a break, but we were. I went and ate some lunch real quick. Did you do anything productive on your break?
same thing I do every opportunity I get, which is smoke a cigarette. I am not addicted. I am in control. I just choose to think about smoking a cigarette 24/7.
Of course.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
All right. All right, let's get into our top three. So today, since it's film category. Of course, I'm probably going to be the one to ramble on this time, but um, our category is top three remakes. So it could be a remake of the, as long as it's the same film. So it could be same film in another language or another decade or whatever, as long as it's a remake.
And it's a
So
film. We're doing all three
yes,
of our picks are films, yeah, or movies,
yes,
whatever.
no movies. Sorry, let me not be pretentious.
Either way, I
So,
use them both. I don't care.
all right, yeah. So no TV shows, just movies. All right. Do you want to go first or should I go first?
Um, I don't care either way, really.
All right.
I'm ready, or you can go.
I'll go first.
Okay,
So
cool.
my first pick my first pick is, and there's going to be this running theme, I think, with most of my picks, that they're movies that most people do not know are remakes.
Mm-hmm.
Because people complain about remakes so often when some of the best movies completely totally regarded as the best movies of all time. A lot of them are remakes from
Mm-hmm.
people who are way too young to have seen the originals will point these out as like back when filmmaking was original and everything wasn't a reboot or a remake. So one of them I'm going to give is a remake that has since been remade, but I'm going to go with the 1982 version of The Thing.
1980s to's The Thing.
Yes. So this
Nice.
is one of the greatest sci-fi horror movies of all time, often replicated, never duplicated. But the original came out, I believe, in the 50s. Have most people haven't really watched it. So
The
since the
19 oh,
1980s thing,
the 1982 version is the John Carpenter version.
yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so since that one has since been remade, a lot of people will point to this as the original and complain about all these remakes. It's like, oh, the original was perfect. And then I get to be like that annoying like film buff that's like, actually,
Well,
it's not the
technically,
original. You probably haven't seen the original, actually. So it's a
Booyah.
great movie. I'm a huge fan of John Carpenter, and this is one of his best works. Movie is iconic, brilliant, can't be touched.
I'm pretty sure I've seen it. So you're gonna hate me, but we've already talked about this plenty of times. I'm not the hugest like horror buff. I kind of get squeamish, and I'm like horror adjacent because so many of my friends are like crazy into horror. And I had a feeling that this topic of movie remakes. At first, I was struggling. I was like, I can't really think of that many movies that are remakes, aside from the ones that like are remakes that you don't realize are remakes or remakes of movies I've not heard of. But then I remembered, I was like, oh, horror, it's very much part of the genre to remake. It's like a horror is probably where there's the most remakes. It's like you have remakes of the remakes, and it's like it's like a, very much a thing. And The Thing is maybe the prime example of that. And I know it's often regarded as like one of the greatest horror films of all time, the 1980s version.
Mhm.
So that's a I can't remember which one the thing like I can't remember much about it, but I remember I think I've seen that one. I mean yeah. I've seen yeah, I don't know. But that's I'll have to check. I'll have to revisit it, I should say, but not till October because I don't watch horror movies that much. But come October, I'll revisit it. Yeah, I'm just playing, you know. But um, yeah, okay, cool. So I guess it's my turn.
Yep.
So I kind of at first have been struggling with this topic at first, thinking like I can't even think of like three that I would want to talk about. But then I sort of the more I thought about it, then I have like several honorable mentions and stuff. Because there's is the more I thought about it, there is a lot more that are um remakes. And I was kind of I could have probably made a list of all movies that I probably didn't even realize were remakes or kind of had forgotten were remakes or didn't even know were a remake of a foreign film, which is
Yeah.
quite often. A lot of movies that even some movies that I like really like you don't even realize are remakes of a foreign film. Um, but all that said, my first pick for one of top three film movie remakes is also uh, no matter which way I slice it, consistently has been in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. This is in the top 10 list, which is a prestigious honor. You know, I have a mental
I think I know what you're gonna say.
no, I don't know, I think you are. Um
I think I do.
yeah, so it's a remake of a 1962 French short film.
Oh.
Yeah.
Can I
Uh-huh.
tell you what I was gonna say, what I was gonna
Uh-huh.
guess?
Yes.
I was gonna guess Scarface.
Oh no, but that is a remake. Yes.
Okay, go
Not Scarface. Okay. So, I have to think of how you pronounce this. It's La Hete,
on.
LA, one word. The next word, Jet, E with the little thingy, and then another E. Uh,
Mhm,
and that is a 1962 French short film. And I was hesitant to
mhm,
want to include movies that if I've like not even seen it or heard of it, but I have in fact seen this short film several times because I am such a fan of the film that is a remake of it. And so the film that is a remake of the 1962 French science fiction short film La Hete
mhm.
is the 1995 Terry Gilliam movie 12 Monkeys.
Oh, I love that one. That's a good choice.
One of my all-time favorite movies. Just incredible. Has been since like I was a child. I've always loved this movie. Then when I went to film school, I even got to study this movie in one of my classes. Well, because I took a philosophy and science fiction class once, and we discussed like Uh, and my philosophy professor at that time said that it was the best example of how of time travel would actually work,
Mhm,
realistically, because you can't change the past. You can't change you could only learn from it is like the whole
mhm.
concept of the film. And it's Brad Pitt is incredible in this movie. Bruce Willis is incredible in this movie.
Yeah,
Um, he low key is one of my all time favorite actors, like Bruce Willis. I can't deny it because he's
yeah.
in several of my like hard top favorite movies.
Yeah,
This
it's
being
so
one of them.
sad what's happening to
I
him
know,
lately.
I know, and
Yeah,
I'm so grateful for all the works that he's been able to give us. And I think that people are starting to dog on him at his older in his careers. He was like churning out lots and lots of stuff, but
mhm,
if people it yeah, he's going to be remembered as one of the greatest of like movie stars of all time, greatest actors. Uh,
yeah,
yeah, and this is one of the films that I think people will turn to as an example that shows that he could really act too, because this is a heavy, heavy movie. And so, I bring it up as a remake because it is legitimately a remake of this 1960s French short film, um, where basically the same crux of what's happens in 12 Monkeys happens in the short, where this person is tormented by this dream where he's seeing this hurt, there's this he's seeing this death over and over again in his dream, and it's only at the very, very end when you learn that he's been dreaming his own death. He's been seeing his own death in the future, and he was
yeah,
there as a child, and it's him, just like in 12 Monkeys. It's and that is I love 12. It's one of it's yeah. I cannot. And so when I remembered, like, oh yeah, duh, that's a remake. I had to bring that one up
yeah,
because it is. I cannot say how much I love that. I want to watch it right now. Like I've seen it a million times, and I never could get sick of it. I know. I guess Brad Pitt's problematic now. I've learned he's kind of a piece of shit. I guess he kind of but he's phenomenal in this movie. It's like what really put him on the map. On the map, he was kind of on the map, but like he got an Oscar nomination for the role, and it's just like, oh, I like. Yeah, it's just such a yeah, obsessed
yeah.
with that movie.
Okay,
Sorry.
yeah, that's okay. That is a great pick. I was gonna say I love Brad Pitt, but I didn't know he was problematic. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know all
Don't
the
cancel me.
details. I
I
just
gotta.
heard recently. I heard whispers about
Yeah.
it because yeah. But go ahead.
Okay. Okay, yeah, let's move on. So the next movie I'm gonna pick, you said a lot of remakes are horror movies, but I think it's just genre film, just in
Yeah, yeah.
general. There's a lot of because a lot of my list, and I have a list of like 12 movies, and I'm going to let y'all know every single one of them. And I think half of mine are Westerns. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, so one of, again, phenomenal acting. I think Kurt Russell is in both of the movies I've mentioned so far. I'm gonna go with True Grit, the 2011
Oh,
version. This movie was phenomenal. I think it was nominated for a few Oscars.
it's the
I'm a
Coen
huge
Brothers
fan of
version.
Westerns. Yeah, huge fan of Westerns, huge fan of the Coen brothers. This movie is phenomenal. Surpassed the original because the original had John Wayne in it. Fuck him. But I mean, that was also a great movie, but this one's better just by virtue of not having John Wayne in it. It's an amazing movie. I recommend it to everyone.
Yeah,
Have you seen it?
I have, yeah, and I also very much enjoy westerns and the works of the Coen brothers. Coincidentally enough, when I was in film school, well, not even when I was in film school, but before I went to film school, when I took that philosophy and science fiction class, I took a class on westerns, and I took a
Oh,
class
me
on
too.
oh, nice. I took a class on filmmakers, and it was like we had three different segments, and one of the groups of
Mhm.
filmmakers was the Coen brothers. So it's just like the intersection of both of those. Like I studied both those subjects in school. So yeah, and you're right. Genre films in particular, it's not just horror films. You are right. Uh, I need to rewatch the newer True Grit. I've seen it once. But yeah,
Mm,
so westerns they love to do remakes and revisit. It's like a time honored tradition in
mm,
westerns and in horror films. I was
mm,
going to use this to transition into my next pick because it's also like technically a genre film. But I wanted before I do
mm.
that, I wanted to make sure. Are we? Do you have more on True Grit?
No, no, we're
Oh,
good.
oh, oh, oh. Okay, okay.
Trying to
So
get through these. I need to
yeah,
rinse this conditioner here.
oh yeah, yeah, and I could just go on and on. And on. So uh so this I it's not typically what you would think of as a genre, the type of genre for genre films, but I would argue that this 100% should be considered a genre film. And this is going to probably be a surprise to you. It's going to maybe be a little out of left field, but the genre that I'm talking about is holiday movies,
Mm,
which is I also think is very much like genre filmmaking. It's to the definition, it's the same type of thing, right? Christmas movies,
mm.
for example, right? It's very much like,
Yeah,
and it's also a place where they remake a lot of the same stories
yeah,
over like and over again. It's like almost like folklore with like
yeah.
horror movies are like that, and
Mhm.
holiday movies are like that. And so in the genre of holiday movies, I know we're in the middle of April, so it's like off season to talk about Christmas, right? But I'll say that in this year in Christmas, I have my own list of favorite Christmas movies, holiday movies, and three of the movies in my top eight, which is I just yeah, three of my top eight favorite Christmas movies are all remakes of this movie. So
Mm.
it's the most like it's the uh it's the perfect story, and it's been remade over and over and over again. And I'm of course talking about A Christmas Carol, which is just
Okay.
the most perfect story of all time. It's the like it's been first was a
Yeah.
novel and has been remade into a movie over and over and over again.
Can you remind me of what A Christmas Carol is? I'm not a big Christmas
Oh,
person.
dang.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So A Christmas Carol is the story of Ebenezer Scrooge, where he's
Okay,
visited
yes.
by
That's
three
what I thought.
ghosts, the ghost of Christmas
Hmm.
past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas future. And then he reforms himself and, becomes it's the story of it's anti-capitalist at its core. It's about a billionaire
Yes.
realizing how the errors of their ways of being this greedy, selfish person and
Mhm.
giving away all their wealth, and have they were mistreating their worker, which is Bob Cratchit and Tiny Tim, his
Mm.
son, and so
All
it's
right.
yeah. There's been a million
Which,
okay, that's what I'm gonna get to.
yeah, so
So
which
I'll get to it.
version?
So I'll tell you, like I said, three of my top eight favorite movies are eight Christmas movies are remakes of A Christmas Carol, and I think they're all fantastic.
Mhm.
My favorite is the Mickey Mouse's Christmas Carol, but that's not what I'm gonna say as the number
Okay.
one remake because that's not a full movie. It's like 25 minutes made for television. Honorable
Okay.
mention is Scrooged with Bill Murray, which is a great remake of this movie because it's a modern day retelling of it at the time. But I, of
Let's
course,
watch it.
yeah, you need to watch it. It's great. It's Scrooge, and it's this story, and then there's a story within the story because his version of Scrooge is the executive of a network television station, and they're doing a live presentation of Scrooged on television.
Okay.
And yeah, so it's really great. Bill Murray, 80s classic movie. But the choice that I'm picking for the my top 3 greatest remakes of all time is I have to go with A Muppet Christmas Carol, which is
Okay.
with if you're probably familiar with the imagery of it or heard about it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's such a it's so I've talked about how this is like one of the most iconic stories ever and has been remade a million times. Yet somehow the one with the Muppets remains the most like has aged as being the most essential viewing of it. Like it's the perfect retelling of it. It somehow is the one that stands above all of these remakes, and it's just the Muppet version is a perfect version of it. So my choice for my second pick for best film remakes is I'm going to go with the A Muppet Christmas Carol.
Okay. Before I get to my final pick, I want to list off all of my honorable mentions because I have a lot of them. So I already mentioned Scarface, which is an iconic movie. Every Black person has a Scarface poster in their home somewhere. Like it's yeah, it's an iconic movie. A lot of people don't know it's a remake. Another one, I'm gonna have to go with The Ring from 2002. That
Mm.
movie has the American remake of the Japanese movie Ringu. That one has a special place in my heart because it came out on my 10th birthday, actually. And that was what I went to do for my birthday. A lot of my peers did not want to go see a scary movie with me, but it was fine. That's why I like watching movies on my own now. Um, The Magnificent Seven, which is
Mm-hmm.
a spaghetti western and a remake of Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai, and A Fistful of Dollars, which is another spaghetti western and a remake of Akira Kurosawa's Yojimbo. Akira Kurosawa is like was really into American westerns, and American Western directors were really into him. So there's like a lot of back and forth osmosis going on there. And my last honorable mention is The Fly with Jeff Goldblum, one of the
I
movies that
see.
is so disgusting that I cannot watch it multiple times in one year, but I love it. So my final pick, though, I'm gonna have to go with my favorite movie of all time, which
Oh,
is Evil Dead 2,
I
which is
see.
a
Nice.
remake. Oh, sorry, I left off one more of my honorable mentions. Is they're both by the same director, both the original and the remake, is the movie Funny Games. So the original was in a foreign language and then it was remade into American English by the same director. So it's pretty much a shot for shot remake
Oh.
by the same director. It's like the only example I could think of from that, aside from Evil Dead 2, which is a remake, like I said, of Evil Dead 1, both directed by Sam Raimi. It's confusing to people because it's called Evil Dead 2 as a remake, and it only came out a few years after the first one. But Sam Raimi, he didn't have the budget he would have liked for the first movie. And there were a lot of things like after watching the movie that he's like, I want to include this, or it would have been better if we did it this way. So it's a remake, but it has a different ending. A few details and characters have been changed, but the lead actor, Bruce Campbell, is still in it, still the same director, still the same story. And I think it's so much better. It's a lot funnier than the first one. A lot of people don't like that he included so much humor instead of having it be a straight up horror movie. But Bruce Campbell is absolutely hilarious and he nailed this role. Like I said, it's my favorite movie of all time. And I think it's a very unappreciated remake. And I think
Mm.
it's bold of a director to remake a movie like less than 10 years after the first one with the same lead actor
Yeah, that's
and
pretty
call it Evil
ballsy.
Dead 2. Yeah.
just do the same movie again, just like a slightly different take on it, or more actualized version. I know that I've seen like both, but it was a long time ago. I need to revisit the Evil Dead movies. I just horror movies, and even though they're not like straight horror movies, they're all movies I've like seen and then never revisited, so I've forgotten them. So I need to sort of like revisit. I remember enjoying it. I like Sam Raimi. I mean, he directed one of my top 3 or 4 favorite movies of all time, which is Spider-Man 2.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that's a good choice. I kind of knew that little detail about that movie, that it was a sequel remake, and uh, yeah, so I had a feeling you might be bringing that one up, so that's a great choice. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, so for my final choice, I kind of, like I said, I struggled with kind of figuring out what I wanted to talk about for this list. And I still hadn't quite decided until probably like right now. But I do have a few honorable mentions that I definitely wanted to mention. Um, One is arguably considered like the greatest remake of all time, and that's the 1970s version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Speaking of Jeff
That was
Goldblum,
on my long
yeah.
list.
Yeah, I watched that in
Mhm,
film school, and I remember I watched both of them. We watched like I remember studying them in film school, like watching them back
mhm.
to back for this exact purpose of discussing remakes or whatever. And the second one is the first one's great, but the second one is somehow like one of the best movies like ever. It's so
Yeah.
good. It's so good. Um, and so also, just keep rattling off honorable mentions real quick. The
Mhm.
Wizard of Oz is technically a remake. The original 1930s is a remake of a black and white silent one version of it. So that is maybe could be argued. Another one
Mhm.
that's a great of a foreign remake is The Birdcage. The Robin Williams movie is a remake. I almost wanted to bring in that one. That's like it was a very famous like French film.
Mhm.
Also, I think I need to mention that someone who's really, really great at this particular thing, turns out, of being able to remake a movie and the remake still being good, is comedy legend Steve Martin. Because I like
Yeah.
my honorable mention is Cheaper by the Dozen, which is a really great
That was
movie.
on my long list
I
too.
love that movie. But he also did The Father of the Bride, which is I've been told is
Mhm.
a remake. I love like it's a great movie. I
It
haven't seen
is,
it in a
yeah.
while, but he's in both of those, which are two of like on all the lists I saw online are considered two of the best remakes of all time. Plus, he's also in the Pink Panther remake, which I wouldn't say is better than the original, but I enjoyed it because it's Steve Martin. So I got to give Steve Martin a little credit for that. And last honorable mention, but not least, and then I'll do my film, and it's going to be brief, I promise. Last honorable mention I have to give to The Sandman for Mr. Deeds being a remake of the classic Mr. Deeds Goes to Town. Like it's very much a
Yeah.
remake down to every detail of it, but it's the Sandler version of it, and that's a honorable mention for me.
Mhm.
Uh, but the the third pick that I'm gonna pick for my top 3 remakes is a film that is a remake of a uh, Hong Kong film that I admittedly have not seen the original. So I'm bringing in a pick. One of my picks. I could have very easily made a list of 3 movies where I'd never seen the original on any of them because it's that's just how it is. Often it's like I've seen a lot of American versions of movies I didn't even know were remakes. And
Yeah.
when I first saw this movie, I didn't realize it was a remake, and I learned after that it's a remake, and I know that it's a remake, but I've never seen the original. And so my pick is the 2006 masterpiece, The Departed, by Martin
Yes.
Scorsese.
That was almost my number one pick.
Yeah, so I fucking love that movie. It's one of the it's fantastic. Like I love Marty Scorsese. He's a great director. I like his work a lot. I've seen a lot of his movies. He's often talked about as one of the greatest directors of all time. I would just be, adding a cup of water to the ocean that is praise for Martin Scorsese. But The Departed, I love. That's what maybe to me is the best movie. I even like it more than Goodfellas, even though I love Goodfellas. But The Departed to me is just so good. And I've not seen the original though, so I can't really say on its level of being a remake.
I
But
would, I'd say it's better than the original.
you've seen the original.
Yes,
Yeah, you think it's better than the okay, cool. Is it worth checking out the original Internal Affairs,
yes,
the
I would
Hong
say
Kong movie?
so. Yeah,
Yeah. And is it pretty consistent with it?
it is. Yeah,
Cool.
definitely worth the watch.
All right. Okay, cool. Yeah, so that would be my list then. So just to sum it up, I had Martin Scorsese's The Departed. I had how am I forgetting my
Muppet
own list?
Christmas
Oh, I had
Carol.
a Muppet Christmas Carol. That's right. I had The Departed. I had a Muppet Christmas Carol, and I had 12 Monkeys. Okay.
Yes,
And
all
you
good
had?
choices. I had The Thing, True Grit, and Evil Dead 2.
Hell yeah. That is a great list. Um, I yeah, I think we did this topic pretty good. There's a lot. I learned a lot while doing it too because I had to learn more about like, oh, I forgot this was one or this that, and like, um, so I'm trying to think what I decide which I want to do for next week.
Mhm.
Having just learned that you are also into westerns is kind of interesting, but I think I want to put a pin in that. I almost wanted to do that, but because what I originally was thinking is that so we have an upcoming high holiday, which is 420 is going to be in the next few
Yes.
days, and when we record the next episode and when the next episode comes out, it will be 420 something for both of those. For I don't know exact the dates, but it's going to be recorded and come out on a 420 something. So I
Mm.
was thinking maybe we could do our top 3 favorite stoners. And that could be
Okay.
across all media, you know. It could be fictional characters, it could be real people, I guess, too, if we want. It could just be like iconic, like stoner icons. How about that? Let's go with stoner
Okay.
icons, fictional or otherwise.
Okay. I thought you were gonna say stoner movies. I already had my three in mind,
Yeah. Oh, I
but
mean,
now
it
I
could
gotta
be
think on this
movies.
one.
But I think character. I want to just do characters because that's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are we not including real people? We're just
I
doing
don't know.
characters
Or
now?
well, character like well, icon. Yeah, meaning like a person. Whether
Okay.
yeah. What do you think? Does that sound good or
No, that sounds good.
okay? Or should we limit it more? Would you or
No, no,
okay?
I think it's
Cool.
fine.
Stoner icons. Top 3 stoner icons in honor of next week's 420. Um, and
That's gonna be a
yeah.
good one.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I think that might be about something of this. We might have reached something of the end of this episode. I've been Mike Gams. I'm at Mike Gams on all the things. This is something of a podcast. We're at something of a pod on Instagram. At something of a podcast on YouTube, Spotify. Please like, subscribe, comment, share, watch, put it on repeat, and like leave the house and just have it keep going and going and boost those views. We're gonna scam the algorithms. I'm just kidding. With me as always was the very talented Kai Von Dooms. Kai, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Facebook at Kai Von Doom Comedy or Instagram at Kai_Von Doom.
Cool. You wanna take us out? Say goodbye.
All right, bye everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. See y'all next week.
Bye.
You know, I'm something of a podcast myself. I'm something of a podcast myself. You know, I'm something of a podcast. I'm something of a podcast. I'm something of a podcast myself.